Amidst the rise of the Third Reich in the 1930s, as Adolf Hitler's influence spread like a dark cloud over Germany, a malignant seed was planted in the hearts and minds of the nation's youth. This was the Hitler Youth, a malevolent hierarchy whose sole purpose was to create a new generation of National Socialists, blindly obedient to the Führer and his grotesque ideology. But what were the dark practices that took place behind those warlike ranks? And what became of the children trapped within this ominous machinery? Well, imagine yourself as a young Heinrich Himmler, one of the earliest members of the Hitler Youth, who would later become one of the most powerful men in Nazi Germany. Or think of Sophie Scholl, the courageous woman who dared to question Nazi propaganda and paid the ultimate price for her defiance. From early age, these kids were subject to intense indoctrination, brutal physical training, and a crooked portrayal of patriotism, all with the singular goal to forge them into the Führer's perfect soldiers. The Nazi education minister Bernhard Rust once chillingly enunciated, "The whole purpose of education is to create Nazis." And so, under the deceitful mask of fellowship and national pride, the Hitler Youth played a key role in shaping a generation that would feed the Nazi war machine. Join us as we delve into some of the most diabolical things Hitler Youth did during World War II and uncover the harrowing truths behind this twisted regime. Truths that have left an indelible mark on history. The birth and goals of the Hitler Youth. The birth of the Hitler Youth, or Hitlerjugend, can be traced back to the cluttered aftermath of World War I. With Germany crippled by the Treaty of Versailles, a wave of anger and humiliation swept through the nation. In this environment of frustration and unrest, Hitler's National Socialist German Workers' Party, Nazi Party, began to gain traction, promising a return to national pride and power. The roots of the Hitler Youth Organization go back to 1922, when the NSDAP Youth League was formed. However, it wasn't until July 4, 1926, that the group took its final shape under Kurt Gruber's leadership. The sole purpose of the Hitler Youth was clear: to mold a new generation of Germans who would be loyal to Hitler and dedicated to his ideology. Baldur von Schirach, who became Reich Youth Leader in 1931, played a crucial role in expanding the organization. Under his leadership, the group became increasingly militarized and structured, with a focus on physical fitness, discipline, and ideological indoctrination. Von Schirach's motto, "The weak must be chiseled away," reflected the harsh, survival of the fittest mentality the group aimed to instill in its members. By the time World War II began in 1939, membership had become mandatory, ensuring that nearly every German youth was indoctrinated into the Nazi cause. Through its rigorous programs and propaganda, the Hitler Youth helped create the backbone of the Nazi war effort. The intricate structure of the Hitler Youth. The Hitler Youth was an exceptionally organized and very structured group designed to infiltrate every aspect of young German life. The organization was divided into multiple branches, each catering to different age groups and genders, ensuring that every young person was exposed to the party's propaganda and values throughout their development. For boys aged 10 to 14, there was the Deutsches Jungvolk, which aimed to introduce them to National Socialism and provide a sense of camaraderie. Activities included hiking, camping, and sports, as well as lessons in history, geography, and racial theory. The slogan, "Für Führer, Volk und Vaterland," for Führer, the people, and the fatherland, embodied the loyalty and dedication expected of members. Older boys, aged 14 to 18, belonged to the Hitlerjugend, where they got intensive paramilitary training, including marching, first aid, map reading, and firearms handling. Meanwhile, girls joined the Bund Deutscher Mädel, which prepared them for future roles as wives, mothers, and supporters of the regime. Girls were taught physical fitness, domestic skills, and the importance of racial purity. Through this intricate structure, the Hitler Youth created a regimented path that conditioned youth to become future leaders and soldiers loyal to the Nazi regime. This deep-rooted loyalty and discipline were fostered through constant reinforcement of Nazi ideals, creating a generation dedicated to Hitler's vision. The tactics of recruitment and retention in the Hitler Youth. The recruitment and retention strategies of the Hitler Youth were strategic, multifaceted, and carefully executed to ensure the widespread indoctrination of German youth. In the early years, the Nazi Party relied heavily on propaganda to attract young people, presenting the Hitler Youth as an exciting, adventurous, and fulfilling alternative to the dull and uncertain lives many children experienced during the Weimar Republic. Boys and girls alike were drawn to the organization by promises of outdoor activities, camaraderie, and a sense of belonging. The group's image was marketed as an exciting way to contribute to national pride, with Nazis showcasing pictures of young members participating in hiking, sports, and other joyful activities. This fun image was key in making the Hitler Youth seem like a vibrant, positive force in young people's lives. Once the Nazi regime gained more power, the sense of patriotism became a major selling point. Joining the Hitler Youth was framed as an obligation to the nation, a duty for every young German to contribute to the prosperity of the fatherland. Peer pressure further strengthened the recruitment process. As the organization grew in size, those who didn't join were often socially ostracized. Teachers and authority figures also encouraged or even required youth to join, further consolidating the group's influence. By 1936, membership was made nearly compulsory, and by 1939, it was mandated for all eligible German youth. This legal enforcement ensured that the Hitler Youth became the main channel for indoctrinating the young generation. The multifaceted education of the Hitler Youth. The education provided by the Hitler Youth was designed to create well-rounded, obedient, and physically fit individuals who would be loyal to the Nazi regime. It was a multifaceted approach aimed at not only indoctrinating the youth, but also preparing them for active roles within the Third Reich. One of the primary goals was political indoctrination. Members were taught the principles of National Socialism, focusing on the superiority of the Aryan race and the need for unwavering loyalty to Adolf Hitler. Lessons in racial theory, history, and Nazi ideology were part of their daily curriculum, ensuring that young minds were steeped in the regime's propaganda. In addition to ideological training, physical fitness was emphasized. The Hitler Youth believed that a healthy body was vital for a strong nation. Boys participated in track and field, gymnastics, swimming, and other physical activities. This focus on fitness was not just for enjoyment, but was integral to the goal of creating strong, disciplined individuals who could serve in the military and contribute to the war effort. The Hitler Youth also included paramilitary training. As members aged, they learned marching drills, firearm handling, and basic military tactics. This was meant to prepare them for eventual service in the German Armed Forces, or the SS. Youth were also encouraged to pursue careers that would support the Nazi regime, whether in farming, industry, or civil service. For boys, this included compulsory agricultural service, a year spent on farms to cultivate skills, and a connection to the land, which was seen as vital for the future of the Reich. The unique experiences of girls and women in the BDM. The Bund Deutscher Mädel, or League of German Girls, provided young girls in Nazi Germany with a distinct experience designed to shape them into ideal wives and mothers for the Third Reich. Unlike their male pals in the Hitler Youth, whose focus was on military training, girls in the BDM were mainly prepared for their roles in domestic life, with an emphasis on traditional female virtues like modesty, cleanliness, and hard work. Through activities such as cooking, sewing, and childcare, BDM members were trained to raise Aryan children, emphasizing the importance of producing healthy, strong families for the nation. Physical fitness was also a significant part of the BDM curriculum, as a strong and healthy body was deemed essential for motherhood. Girls participated in sports like gymnastics, hiking, and swimming to ensure they were physically prepared for their future roles. However, the BDM was not just about preparing for domestic life. It also promoted loyalty to the Nazi regime. Members were taught the importance of racial purity and encouraged to report any deviation from Nazi principles, effectively making them agents of the regime. Figures like Trude Moore helped expand the BDM, making it an integral part of Nazi propaganda, instilling in girls a sense of duty to both the Führer and the nation. The impact of the Hitler Youth on family life and trust. The Hitler Youth had a profound impact on family dynamics in Nazi Germany, creating tension and mistrust within homes as children were encouraged to prioritize their loyalty to the Führer over their allegiance to their own families. The regime's policy of turning youth into informants transformed even the most private family spaces into potential sites of surveillance. Children were indoctrinated to report any dissent or disloyalty, including expressions of doubt or criticism of the Nazi regime from their parents. This climate of fear and suspicion often led to family members being betrayed by their own children, creating a deep rift between generations. The tension was so severe that children who had been indoctrinated into the Hitler Youth came to view their role as protectors of the regime, even if it meant betraying their parents. A chilling example of this dynamic can be seen in the case of Helmuth Hubener, a member of the Hitler Youth who was betrayed by a fellow member and executed for resistance activities during the war. This erosion of familial trust was further highlighted by the Edelweiss Pirates, a group of young people who resisted Nazi rule. In some cases, members of the Hitler Youth reported these rebels to the authorities, underscoring the destructive consequences of divided loyalties within families. The long-term psychological effects of this betrayal left many survivors with guilt, shame, and strained relationships that persisted long after the war. The global reach of the swastika. While the Hitler Youth primarily focused on indoctrinating German youth, its influence extended far beyond Germany's borders. The regime aimed to export Nazi ideology globally, establishing partnerships with like-minded youth organizations in various countries. One of the earliest global alliances was with the Italian fascist youth group, the Balilla. This partnership allowed for the exchange of ideas, propaganda, and training, further cementing the Nazi regime's ideological reach. As Germany expanded its territory during World War II, the Hitler Youth forged connections with youth organizations in occupied countries. In Norway, for example, the Ungdommens National Samling adopted many aspects of the Hitler Youth's structure and training. Similarly, in Vichy France, Belgium, and the Netherlands, Nazi ideology was spread through the establishment of youth groups aligned with the Hitler Youth, further promoting the idea of a united fascist Europe. The Nazi regime also sought to extend its influence beyond Europe. Through programs like the German-American Bund Exchange, young Germans living in America were given opportunities to visit Germany and participate in Hitler Youth activities, fostering ideological alignment between the two nations. Plus, the Nazis reached out to fascist groups in the US, such as the Silver Shirts, sharing propaganda and promoting a global network of fascist youth organizations. Stories of young dissenters in the shadow of the Hitler Youth. Not all German youth embraced the ideals of the Hitler Youth, despite the pressure to conform. While most were swept up in the Nazi regime's fervor, others found ways to resist, often at great personal risk. These young dissenters showed incredible courage, standing against the regime's tyranny in small and large ways. One of the most famous examples of youth resistance was the White Rose movement. Comprising university students like Hans and Sophie Scholl, this group distributed leaflets that denounced Nazi atrocities, urging passive resistance. The Scholls were eventually caught and executed, but their actions left an enduring legacy of moral courage. Another prominent group, the Edelweiss Pirates, included working-class teens who rejected the rigid structure of the Hitler Youth. They engaged in sabotage, helped deserters, and even gave shelter to escaped prisoners. Many of them were arrested and executed, yet their rebellious spirit remained a symbol of defiance. Meanwhile, the Swing Kids, a group of teenagers drawn to jazz music, stood against Nazi cultural restrictions by embracing a non-conformist, multicultural identity. Though not directly political, their resistance lay in their defiance of the regime's control over personal freedom. Youth on the front lines. As World War II engulfed Europe, the Hitler Youth, once an organization focused on training youth for a life of service, became a tragic symbol of the regime's desperation. As the war progressed and Germany's manpower dwindled, the Nazis increasingly relied on the Hitler Youth to support both the home front and the battlefield. Boys as young as 16 were conscripted into the military, sent to fight in increasingly brutal conditions, often without proper training or experience. The initial tasks for Hitler Youth members were supportive, such as collecting scrap metal, working in agriculture, or preparing for air raids. However, as Germany's military situation worsened, the demands on these young people intensified. Many found themselves in factories, producing arms and supplies under hazardous conditions, further exacerbating the toll the war had on their bodies and minds. The most heartbreaking chapter came in 1945, during the Battle of Berlin. With the Red Army closing in, young members of the Hitler Youth were called to defend their city. Armed with rudimentary weapons like rifles and Panzerfausts, they fought bravely, but many met horrific ends. Their youthful zeal was no match for the overwhelming Soviet forces, and thousands perished in the final desperate days of the war. Dismantling the Hitler Youth and healing the scars of a nation. After the fall of Nazi Germany, dismantling the Hitler Youth was essential to healing a nation scarred by years of indoctrination. In 1945, the Allies banned the group and worked to remove Nazi ideology from society. The focus shifted to re-educating young Germans, fostering democratic values, and encouraging critical thinking. While many leaders were prosecuted, rank-and-file members faced re-education, dealing with the emotional aftermath of their involvement in a regime that caused immense suffering. The process was slow but crucial for Germany's recovery. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe. We'll see you in the next one.